fear through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such eagle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Disciples of Ed here with the All This Next Year podcast network. I'm your host, Rob, joined tonight by Borek. How you doing, Borek?
Doing well, and we're here to talk about the Flyers' successful season, disappointing end, but successful season, so excited.
And joined also by Steve. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing all right. Could be better. Could be.
We all could be a little bit better. Well, unfortunately, the time has come a little bit early for us to do a season recap episode. We were hoping to do, we obviously would have done an Eastern Conference Finals preview had the Flyers won that Game 7 against the Islanders, and we were hoping at this point we would be doing a Stanley Cup Finals preview, but that's not going to happen. That's not in the cards for this year. The Philadelphia Flyers season coming to an end a couple weeks ago in a Game 7 4-0 shutout loss. Really disappointing after they had fought back from being down 3-1 in the series with back-to-back overtime wins. Just coming out completely flat in that Game 7. It was just, pretty bizarre to me, honestly, how they fought so hard to even up the series, and then they just appeared completely lifeless, in that Game 7. Anyway, here we stand doing a season recap episode. The Philadelphia Flyers, in their 69 nice regular season games before the coronavirus hit, finished with a record of 41-21, 7 overtime losses for 89 points, and then sweeping the 3 round-robin games up in Toronto to get the top seed in the Eastern Conference of the playoffs, winning the first round in 6 games over Montreal, falling in 7 to the New York Islanders in the second round. Guys, and Borek, I'll start with you. All things considered, the first year of Alain Vigneault's tenure in Philadelphia, do you think this team was maybe a little bit of ahead of schedule in terms of the success that they had this year? Or how would you say they did compared to what your expectations were coming into the season?
Yeah, how I would describe it is they heightened our expectations because of how they performed. But from our, I think most people's expectations from the beginning of the season, they exceeded them. I would venture to guess most people's expectations weren't going to be one of the best teams in the entire Eastern Conference. It was more, let's build, let's make the playoffs, and let's build on that. And then we became, of course, because of the round robin, technically the best team in the Eastern Conference, seeding-wise, when we went into the playoffs. So I would say they did exceed what we thought would be possible in AV's first year, because in the regular season, everything kind of fell into place. You had Myers playing well with Sanheim. You had Provy really playing confident with a veteran like Niski with him. And then for the regular season, not at all in the postseason, you had Braun playing well with Hag to help Robert Hag get better as well. Everybody kind of just fell into place. Obviously, at the beginning of the year before he had his unfortunate diagnosis, Oscar was balling out and then came back and even looked pretty damn good for someone that came back from months of battling cancer in the 2 games he played. So I do think there's more positives and negatives to pull from this season. I think it's more just the way we lost is pretty disappointing for the way we played in the regular season, but I think now that it's been a little bit, when you sit back and examine it, it's not the most unexpected thing. I mean, we knew our team we didn't think our team coming into this year was necessarily there yet. We thought it was a starting point to then get there by how AV has talked since, either hopefully next year, and they definitely should have, if they make the right moves, the potential to do that. So I think it's just a starter year, kind of like how the Phillies had a starter year and then won the championship. So.
Yeah, that's a comparison that I think I made after the Flyers were eliminated, that this year's Flyers were kind of like the 07 Phillies. You know, they're played so well at the end of the season. They were hot going into the playoffs, just like the Phillies were in 2007. And once the playoffs hit, kind of seemed overmatched. Even though they won that opening round, they looked totally overmatched against the Islanders and were honestly lucky to get the 3 wins that they did get in overtime. So, yeah, I see the parallel there between the 07 Phillies and the 2020 Philadelphia Flyers, and hopefully that parallel remains the same next season because, the 08 Phillies, guess what they did? Would be nice if the Flyers could replicate that. And Steve, we'll go to you now. How did the Flyers fare compared to what your expectations were in the first year of Alain Vigneault's tenure?
I feel like it was probably a consensus goal of just win at least one playoff round, just get to that second round, and then the season can be considered at the very least met expectation. And, they did. And like Borek said, the expectation does get heightened throughout the season. And this was a very, very strange season, with the pandemic happening. And the Flyers were hot going into it. Then it seemed like they just got right back to where they left off with the round robin. And then they just met 2 tough, systematic opponents and kind of showed that they're still not quite there yet, but that they're still very close and that they can get over the hump next year, like you guys were saying with the 07 Phillies, going into 08. And I think that they kind of are, just depends on the moves and, this is a huge, huge off season, just to make the right decisions. Lindblom being able to come back at 100% because he didn't look out of place, but you could see how good he is, but also that, the man conquered cancer and hadn't played in so long. But it's a meets expectation for me. If they didn't even with this pandemic and they didn't even make it past the first round, I would have said it was a failure. But this season will kind of have an asterisk to me because everybody's going to be disappointed with how they went out. I'm going to apologize for being right in my prediction for the second round against the Islanders because I was 100% right, unfortunately. I hate it when I'm right. But here we are.
You just had to make that prediction, didn't you?
I got to be honest, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
Wanted a prediction. I was honest. Here we are.
You were right. We will unfortunately have to give you credit for that. Yeah, it was just, it felt so anticlimactic how it came to an end. It kind of had that storybook feel to it with the way that they were playing, and then the story of Lindblom fighting back from cancer to get back and play in the playoffs. You kind of thought that was supposed to be written in the stars that this is going to be the Flyers' year, and really anticlimactic how it ended with a thud in that Game 7. But lots of really positive things to pick up on from the season. Obviously, Carter Hart playing the way that he did and being that stud goaltender that we all expected him to be. Kind of a hiccup in the second round. He wasn't quite as good then, but, it's his first taste of the playoffs. And in the first round, he had the back-to-back shutouts and played so well then, was excellent throughout the regular season. Another thing...
Team. It was the whole team. Carter Hart didn't let us
it was
down.
The whole team.
And he didn't. Then they gave Elliott one of the games, didn't they?
They did, yes.
Yeah, I would have started Hart, but I understand the whole back-to-backs and everything, but it's frustrating.
I'm with you on that.
And another thing that I thought stood out was, for years we had been playing up how good these young defensemen were going to be for us. And this year we kind of saw it come to fruition before our very eyes. We saw Provorov be that stud number 1 defenseman that we know he's capable of. We saw Sanheim make great strides. We saw Hag play well when they needed him to. We saw Phil Myers come up and play really well down the stretch and score a big game-winning overtime goal in that series against the Islanders. Guys, what's your takeaway from those young defensemen? And how would you, and Steve, will start with you this time, how would you say your confidence is with them as the part of the core of the team going forward?
I mean, Sanheim and Myers kind of did struggle a bit against the Islanders, but it was kind of bound to happen. It was a very tough Islanders team to play against, but it's a learning experience for them in the playoffs. Myers, who has AHL playoff experience. I think he's played the most minutes in a single game ever. I think he played, 68 minutes or something. Whoever they were raving about in the 5 overtime games, Philip Myers still played more than him. I think it was Seth Jones.
It was Seth Jones, yeah.
Yeah. I think he played a solid minute more than him in the Phantoms' longest game. But yeah, Provorov, I'm not sure Niskanen's 100% future past next year, but if you heard a noise then, my roommate is working on the roof. So I apologize for that. But yeah, Provorov, I think, he'll probably still be with Niskanen, but I would next year look at maybe moving Sanheim or Myers up to play with Provorov, because I think those two both have top pair potential. So when you have players like this with this potential at their ages, it's fantastic to see. Disappointing that Ghost is probably not going to be a Flyer anymore, because I feel like they're going to trade him. But I think that he would be able to mesh well with Sanheim or Myers in the future, but I think they're going to move on. But it is fantastic to go so many years with maybe one guy, even before Provorov, who do we really have? I mean, Eric Gustafsson.
Hey, he did score a breakaway
Dave
goal against
Haxtell's
Lundqvist in the
favorite
playoff
gentleman.
game.
Lost my voice during that.
Yeah, Dave Haxtell's favorite gentleman, Brandon Manning, who somehow, I didn't think that the freaking Oilers give him a first-round pick for freaking Brandon Manning. I think
it was
the
a
Blackhawks.
Maybe
it might have been either way. They overpaid heavily for Brandon Manning, and the coach benched him 2 games later.
Because he
because he blows. Yeah,
he did one good thing in his NHL career, and that was break Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
That's why it made
Connor
no sense
McDavid's
for the Oilers to trade for him, because he was pissed at Brandon Manning still. That's why that also made no sense.
Trying to light a fire on McDavid. Get some intensity out.
Yeah, anyway, taking a look at some of the Flyers' upcoming free agents, they got some UFAs, Justin Braun, Brian Elliott, Pitlick, Nate Thompson's probably not going to be back. They've got Derek Grant, who knows what's going to happen there. And the RFAs, at least from what I'm seeing right now, Nolan Patrick, Robert Haig. They've got Phil Myers as an RFA, our guy Abe Kubel. I think everybody wants him back. He's an RFA. And so if you guys had to prioritize out of those names right there, and Borek, will start with you. If you guys had to prioritize which guys you want back the most, and which would be best for the team in terms of the salary cap, who's at the top of your list there that the Flyers absolutely need to get a deal done with?
Well, as a UFA, I don't think this one's going to surprise anybody. I think they need to find a way to bring back Pitlick. I mean, if we're talking about one guy that didn't look like dog trash in the games, the entire team looked like dog trash, that would be Tyler Pitlick. So he's a guy that just works really hard. He's not the most skilled player by any stretch. I think we all know that, but he's usually the hardest worker, one of the top 3 on the ice day in and day out. So he's a guy you want to have in your locker room and on the ice for you in your bottom 6. You have to figure you're going to have to pay him more than he got paid last year. Don't get me wrong, because he's had a solid season this year, really a career year with AB. So, but he's going to be a guy that you can get him for a couple million to something. You should consider doing that because of the way he's fit into your system. Derek Grant, because of how he fell off a cliff, I would not bring him back. Nate Thompson, I personally would not bring back. From some of the quotes and stuff we've been getting at Flyers Nitty, I do think there's a chance, though. I don't want him back, but do I think there's a chance he will be back, because you can give him $750K, pretty much. Yeah, there's probably a chance. He might literally be a coach at that point, though, where he plays 25 games and then he'll play some games that people get injured. But I don't. That's why I also don't see that worth it, because with the guys we have coming up that are playing good overseas now too, Kase looks really good, Rupsov, Shushko. It doesn't make sense to bring somebody like that back. Braun, I also want to bring back because of him falling off. Before I would have debated it. Now I would just let one of the young guys or get another veteran. There's multitudes of other veterans that are exactly to the level of Justin Braun in the free agency. I mean, it's not like Braun's anything very special. He's just a solid defensive bottom pair defensive defensemen. There's quite a few of those in the free agency, like Derek Forbert and so on. So I would say the only guy out of a UFA I really want to bring back is Pitlick. Other guys I'm okay with letting them go. Now an RFA is two people, and you obviously need to re-sign Myers, and you need to get a good contract with. You could probably potentially get a good 2 or 3 year contract if Chuck Fletcher plays his card right with Kubel before he gets good. Because we see how he plays a consistent forechecking game. He plays a good 200-foot game. You might be able to get out in front of him then being worth closer to $3 million rather than if you pay him now, he's definitely not worth that yet. So that could be a smart move there to try to give him a couple years if we take it. And Hag, because of how he played, I would re-sign. It's just out of those RFAs. If we had to lose somebody because of cap, even though I really love Robert Hag because he plays a more physical game and we need that on our team, but that would be the one guy I could stomach a little bit more because I can't stomach losing this developing skill of a guy that just seems like he's a little bit of a late bloomer, some because of injuries and so on, in Abe Kubel. And then we know Myers is a great undrafted pickup, so you can't lose either of those two. Hag's the one I could stomach. I don't want to lose him, but he's the one I could stomach better than the other guys.
Yeah, it's I just want to go back to what you were saying about Braun.
I forgot about Nolan Patrick. You're going to have to figure something out with Nolan Patrick.
Well, in terms of Nolan Patrick, I think that it might be a good time for the Flyers for him to be an RFA because of the fact that he missed all of last season, so his value did not increase. And they might be able to. I mean, they're going to have to pay him more than the $925,000 that they paid him for last season. That's no doubt about that. But you can probably get him relatively cheap given that he didn't play at all this past season and he hasn't produced a whole hell of a lot in the games that he has played at the NHL level. So, and this guy, I still think that he has a world of potential that's untapped. And he's only 22 years old. He has, I think he still has a very bright future ahead of him. You could lock him up long term for relatively cheap at this point, and that's something the Flyers absolutely need to go ahead and do.
Well, I know they were talking about, I can't remember if it was a TSN YouTube video or a Sportsnet YouTube video, but they were talking about if you would spend less money on him because of his RFA status, you would have to pay him a little bit more if you sign him as an RFA. If you have a handshake agreement and actually let him drop out of the restricted free agency and then sign him as a UFA. Obviously, you would have to work that out so nobody steals him from you. But
he's not offer sheet eligible, according to Cap Friendly.
So he's not what?
He's not offer sheet eligible.
Oh, he isn't. Okay, then I guess you're. Yeah. Well, no. But he wouldn't. That wouldn't be an offer sheet if you take him out of being a restricted free agent. That would just be.
You just leave him as a restricted free agent.
Because no. That's not the reason why. The reason why is because of the tenders. When you pay a guy as a restricted, they were saying you have to pay him up each year. So if you keep giving a restricted a 1-year deal, you have to pay him up. So pay him up is at least, I think, $2 million. So if you don't want to pay him above $2 million, you would have to sign him as an unrestricted, is what they were saying. You would have to let him drop and have a handshake agreement if you want to pay him, say, 1 to 1.5. If you are okay with paying him $2 to $3 million, then you can sign him as a restricted.
Yeah, and I'd say that Patrick's camp is probably if I were them, I wouldn't settle for less than that $2 million because of the draft pick status, how high he was picked, and I think there still is, some at least a little bit of hype surrounding him that he could have a market if he goes the UFA route. He could have a market of teams that would be willing to pay him that. So I personally don't see that being able to work out. I think the Flyers would need to sign him as an RFA and give him that somewhere in the $2 to $3 million range that he would probably be looking for.
Truth be told, I didn't think it would work out either. My friend did though, so I wanted to bring it up and see what side you guys are on. So I figured I'll take it as a devil's advocate side to see what side you're on. So,
his qualifying offer is only $874,000.
Well, you might want to tell them that because that's not what they were saying on that video.
I'm just going off of Cap Friendly, all right. I'm going off it. They have a qualifying offer
friendly.
calculator.
According to Cap Friendly too, sometimes you do got to watch a couple guys because according to them in Sport Track, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is a free agent, which he ain't. So that's next year.
He's not.
So that's the one blimp in the system.
It's calculated from the base salary, NHL salary minus signing bonus, and a minimum must meet the season's minimum salary requirements. And 100% of the base salary is equal or greater than. No. If it's less than $1 million, it's 105%. So his base salary is actually $832,500. So times 105%, $874,000 is a qualifying offer. He's based off the information I'm seeing, I see him getting the qualifying offer, and then they really are they get down to, your nitty gritty of it and decide what is feasibly possible with, his health, his potential, what's really going on between the two, because I think, like Rob said, he has world potential, but he will forever now have this injury potentially liability attached to him, and I think that kind of hurts him in contracts. So I think they meet on a 1-year deal, and then that's where they take the potential qualifying offer the following year. I think that's what happens. But there's also potential that he could be trade bait if they're looking to make a big trade. I think they wouldn't necessarily hesitate in trading him. It's the team they're trading with is hesitant on acquiring him, making sure that his health and everything.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. There's some flexibility, and I think this is aided by the injuries. There is some flexibility as to what they could do there, and it all depends on how they feel he fits into the plans for the future. If they think, we can all think what we want to think about his injury status. It depends. At the end of the day, it only matters what the Philadelphia Flyers think of whether or not he's going to be injury prone or not. We can all make that judgment however we want as fans, but they might see something different than what we see. Yeah. They're the ones who are they're with him at the practices and the games and in the training room and whatnot all the time. So they're always going to know something that we don't know there. So it'll be interesting to see which direction they go in with Nolan Patrick. That's for certain.
Yeah, and Borek, this what I'm saying, it might be because of the fact that he's not eligible for a qualifying or an offer sheet. Might be why his offer is so low.
Yeah, I think they thought he was going to be eligible because I think when that video came out, they assumed eventually, whether it was for the postseason that made him eligible. Yeah, he would come back and play somewhat like Lindblom did. So I think that's part of what screwed that up. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting situation there, that's for certain. The way that my priorities for the offseason, in terms of the Flyers pending free agents, I'm with you guys that Myers should be up at the top. That's a deal that they need to get done. I love Knack. I think that they certainly need to bring him back as well. Borek, I'm actually going to go the opposite direction as you on Derek Grant. He did not play well in the playoffs, but he played well in the limited amount of action that they had after the trade deadline in the regular season. And I think that AV could find a way to make him a very useful third or fourth line player. I could see Derek Grant, probably a fourth line guy. I could see Derek Grant being back with the team next year. Nate Thompson, I hope those rumors you mentioned are not true because I don't think anybody really wants to see him back. Justin Braun was an important defenseman. He's 33 years old. His cap hit for the 1920 season was $3.8 million. I would like to see him back, but not at that number, though. If they're going to bring him back, I would like to see them do it closer to 3, maybe 3.25 max, somewhere around there. I think 3.8 is pretty steep. But for a veteran defenseman, he is going to command a pretty high cap hit, and hopefully they'll be able to get him back somewhere in the range of 3 to 3.25. And, yeah, Hag also, he's 25 years old. I think we know what he is by now. He's never going to be anything spectacular, but he's a pretty solid defenseman. I think they bring him back. I would like to see Pitlick. I liked what Pitlick brought to the team this year. He brought a lot of stability for the bottom line and some really good defensive play for a forward. And another interesting one for me Even though he's 35 years old, Brian Elliott, probably one of the better backup goalies in the NHL, at least the way he played this past season. And if they don't bring him back, then I'm not really sure what their plan would be for the backup goalie spot, because the guys that they have down in the minors, I'm not quite sure that they're quite ready to step up and make that jump.
And the best goalie overseas who's not ready yet just got injured in some accident that we don't know much information about yet. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting turn of events there. So I would not be surprised to see Brian Elliott back as well.
No, I agree with that. The issue with you seem to want, other than Nate Thompson, everyone back is not the fluctuating cap, the stagnant cap, staying as it is, which is why I think Justin Braun's a goner. Because I don't see him getting less than 2.5, and I don't see unless you trade JBR, obviously. I don't see the Flyers figuring out a way to fit all that into their cap. Now, Grant, if we keep him as a 4C, I'm perfectly fine bringing him back. My issue is I don't think he's an everyday 3C. I think that's what he performed at this year, and this is the only year he did. And I feel like AV has a man crush on him too much. So I don't want him getting overplayed. That's the thing I worry about him coming back. So hopefully Patrick would be back and ready to go if Grant does come back, so that automatically slots him where he should be. Then I'm cool with it. I just don't want AV having a man crush and overplaying him like he did when he was not even performing well in the playoffs, just like we did with good old Nate Thompson.
Yeah, that's exactly why I don't want Nate Thompson back at all. And everything I read about Nate Thompson was that, he would be happy to be back. He would love to be back, but this is where I really, really start to, get like a good or a bad feeling about a GM. If you see a player who plays pretty bad and is overplayed, and then you extend them, and then this guy could be a good 13th forward. Nate Thompson could be a good 13th or 14th forward, but then you see how much he's being played by the coach. You just need to realize, okay, we just need to step away. So if they re-sign him because AV likes him and then he continues to overplay him, then you're really just hurting your team because of AV's interest in him. And that's why I'll appreciate Nate Thompson, everything he said, but no thank you. Thank you, but no thank you.
Very good point.
He was really bad in the playoffs. So as we said before, the whole team was not great. He was probably one of the worst players out in the ice whenever he was out there.
He's getting 15 minutes a night.
A complete and total liability for those 15 minutes a night. So I would not be losing any sleep if Nate Thompson ends up playing elsewhere next year.
Like if I had a guarantee that they extended Nate Thompson over 1 year, vet minimum, and he was just sharing like fourth line center duties with Connor Bunneman or someone, just anyone that could come up at this point, like Rupsov, then I'd be like, yeah, sure, you can show them the ropes, teach them face-offs, or kind of basically player coach, as Borek kind of hinted at. But I just don't see that happening because, hey, we'll make the playoffs, and then Nate Thompson will just be playing 15 minutes a night again, and I just can't see that again. I don't ever want to see that again.
Oh my God,
Brandon,
that would be like a flashback to the days where Dave Haxtell was actually playing Dale Weiss. Before Dale Weiss had a permanent residency up in the press box.
Yes. Yeah, that's the issue.
Well, that also wasn't a pretty contract either to begin with.
Yeah, I think they signed him for playoff performance, and it was just
because he had one
probably
good series against Tampa.
Worst free agent signing, or at least it's definitely top 3, I would say, because he didn't make many.
No, he did pretty well for setting the team up to be what they are right now. But Dale Weiss was not an ideal situation there. I think that was back when Montreal was playing Tampa. What was it, like 2013, 2014, something like that? And Weiss had, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 goals in that series.
Yeah, he did his best RJ Omerger impression.
Pretty much, and he got a pretty hefty payday from the Philadelphia Flyers, who just, after a couple of years, they had no use for him. Anyway, given what the Flyers free agent situation is and what you think they'll end up doing with the guys who are free agents, Steve, what's your expectation for this team going into next season? Do you think that they're going to show that this past season wasn't wasn't just a flash in the pan, that they'll actually continue to improve and be a legit team, or do you think maybe they'll fall back a little bit?
It really depends on the offseason. This offseason can go either way, but they do have the foundation in place. As long as Myers is re-signed, and I think he should get like a 6-year deal to try to keep like the cap hit kind of lower, kind of like what they did with Provorov. But other than that, just bring back Pitlick and Aubie Kubel, and then move on from Braun. I would not sign him for anything more than $2.5 million. I would bring back Elliott, but if you can't, you got to find a good potential next Anton Kudabin kind of backup.
Yeah, because you're not going to get him now with how good he's doing.
Oh, no, it's going to be the most interesting goalie all season that I can ever remember.
Because he's got the Dobby mask.
Yeah, but
fucking love the Dobby mask.
But yeah, it's just this offseason is going to be weird because everybody's, they're planning now. There's a stagnant cap for the next 2 years, maybe 3. I don't quite recall. And then you have the expansion draft coming up where Seattle will basically be able to just trade rate people, maybe even better than Vegas did because of this stagnant cap. So like GMs need to be really smart with the cap, what they're able to do, how to build their team. I think you're going to see a lot of teams trusting their prospects, and I think that's something that the Flyers should exactly do. Give the Rubtsovs a chance. I'm okay with losing Hag, but I think they'll keep him. I think he's perfectly fine 6th defenseman, even better 7th, who will fill in for injuries. But Mark Friedman, I would probably, even eventually give him a chance, give Morin some time in the AHL next year. But it's just a matter of what they're able to do with the cap, and also, just the development of the prospects continuing.
Yeah, we definitely have a good chance of that happening from what Fletcher said in some of he seems like he wants to keep our prospects the opposite of Paul Holmgren. So,
yes, and that's something I'm always for, because I loved Paul Holmgren's first 1 or 2 years, and then everything after I just grew to hate it, and I knew he was drunk, so I just got drunk. But yeah, basically, I would keep Elliott, but I think there's going to be so much shenanigans going on with the goalies this year in the offseason. Fleury's going to be available. They just re-signed Leonard, his whole agent thing. I just think it's going to be a very interesting offseason, and then it's whatever they decide to do with next season, like how they're going to do it. I personally think they should just start maybe January and just do another shortened season and then get back on track for normality the following, season. But I think we're still waiting to hear on that. I think I finally saw the draft is 3 weeks away now.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that before.
The tentative date for the season was the beginning of December. Granted, the NBA pushed back to at least Christmas. So I don't know if that will affect the NHL. If the NHL will be like, hooray, now we don't have to deal with the NBA for 3 weeks. So we'll see we'll see where that goes.
Well, the only thing that would really affect is the teams that share arenas, like the Flyers do with the Sixers, arena availability, because the NBA is going to be trying. They're not going to get their full 82 games in, but they'll try to squeeze as many games as they can into that shortened season. I think the NHL would probably do the same. If they start around, Steve, where you mentioned January, they'll probably try to squeeze in, I'd say probably 60 games or so. So that's the only issue that would be there, is the teams that share arenas just being able to have the arena available for the set number of home dates that each team's going to have.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't.
Hockey is way more realistic and close to the numbers than a freaking 60-game baseball season. So.
Yes, 100% right. But also,
especially when with baseball, you have teams like the Phillies right now fitting 18 games into 14 days because of the coronavirus delays.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will not be an issue.
But yeah, we shouldn't. I mean, the AHL, you see three games back to back. They'll probably, the AHL might be doing more of those, I would assume, just trying to get as many games in, feed those fan bases, because some of them are pretty good. But also a lot of the prospects, and this is where it should help teams going into this next questionable season, is that a lot of their prospects are able to go overseas and at least get some playing time and allow to develop, now they on a different, ice, but they'll be able to continue to play, get some momentum, and then when they come back, they're back and they're fresh. So that should help out a lot, with another shortened season. So
That's true. That's also the reason why I feel the NHL might stick to the beginning of December, because if they want to start in line with where the AHL said they're moving their season for now, that would be about December 4th, I want to say, if I remember correctly from seeing that breaking news for the AHL a little bit ago. So that would kind of make sense rather than having the AHL start and then a full month later. Like, okay, we're starting now. That would be kind of awkward. So
yeah,
the AHL is able to have the caveat for the AHL is that they kind of have to have fans. If you have to start the NHL season without fans, still, that's not going to kill them because they have the TV deals.
Yeah.
The AHL doesn't have that extra excess to.
Yeah, it's just if they're lucky to have that local deal.
Yeah. Some teams don't even have a local deal. You're exactly right. Yeah.
That's an interesting point also that you brought up about potentially grouping games together and playing them in, I guess, series, if you will. That would be a measure that the NHL could take to limit the amount of travel that each team needs to do. Instead of the Flyers, for instance, taking 2 road trips down to Florida to play the Panthers, they would just have back-to-back road games down in Florida and be able to fit that into one trip. Or, going up to Toronto instead of having to go up to Toronto 2 separate times, they just go up there once and play 2 games. I could totally see that being something that the NHL would do. With the way the things that are going on right now, you kind of do want to try to limit travel as much as you can. I think that's one way that the league could go about doing that.
That'd also be pretty fun to watch and follow, having little mini series like a mini baseball hockey season, but hockey's a lot quicker and aggressive of a sport to have that in.
As long as we're not getting those back-to-back away West games.
Good point.
It'd be fun previewing a Flyers 3-game trip out to Pittsburgh. It being a situation where, the Flyers need to absolutely go out there and win 2 out of 3 in the series. You never thought you would talk like that for hockey. It's pretty much only baseball you talk like that. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a nice little wrinkle for that.
For sure.
Yeah, it'll be weird, but it's only for one, potentially nearly half season. So
yeah, just a temporary thing. Anyway. Borek, I almost forgot. What's your expectation going forward for the Flyers? Do you think that they're able to improve upon the building blocks that they set in place this past season?
Yeah, I think the word Steve used hit it right on the head. They have a good foundation, and they have those depth guys, unlike the Phillies, that you want to have in your organization for if all hell breaks loose. Where Rupsov, again, is looking pretty solid overseas. Shusko looks like a menace. So if he can keep doing that, that'll help our bottom 6. And obviously, I think everybody knows how much I like Connor Bunnaman. I don't think I have to keep going on about that guy. Yeah, I do like the foundations we have, and I do think they'll make those smart veteran pickups, whether it's in the offseason or similar to how Tampa and the Islanders added some people in season. Whatever they decide to do there, and I'm talking about the guys that add more faceoffs to aggressiveness, not adding these guys, but similar players to Coleman's and the Goodrows of the world, because the Flyers need a little bit more grit, no pun intended, in their team than they have right now. Now, some of that can come from some of our prospects because Rupsov has grit in his game. If you have him as one of the guys, that we know Bunnaman has that because he tries to piss people off with the forecheck and all that, and he's very good at doing so. So I do like our foundation. I do like how our defensemen are going to develop. I think how everyone says, what do people overreact the most about? Well, it's probably when youngsters struggle in the playoffs when it comes to hockey fans. That should be expected. I mean, you do have 2 defensemen paired with each other that are 24 and 23. So, I mean, they're going to have some blimps in the road. And then when you have the 2 veterans with the youngsters that are not doing as well as they did in the regular season, that's going to just naturally affect a younger defenseman. So all those guys are fine and going to be great parts of our core, in my opinion. Then you got Edgar, who's going to be a great part of the core starting, I believe, next year. So.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting.
And I also like Friedman because he seems like my one friend called him. I called him a mini a poor man's Niskanen because he doesn't do anything stupid. It's just he's not as skilled as Niskanen, but he doesn't do anything stupid and can pass the puck.
Yeah,
So
he
if we
seems
can
like
get
he'll
that-
be a good like sixth, like seventh guy, and then potentially like maybe like a worse team where he could really like find like a good niche kind of, and then develop from there. Kind of like Dylan DeMello did with Ottawa this year.
That's a very good comparison. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I agree with you guys in that. I think that this past season, it wasn't just a blip on the radar. It wasn't just, a flash in the pan. I think that this team is for real going forward. The biggest building block of all, obviously, is between the pipes. It's Carter Hart. It's the first time in forever the team's had a legit stud goalie, and that's a huge thing to build upon. And you can get that good young defense, that core of defensemen in there, and those guys are continuing to improve as well in front of them. And I think really the only thing that the Flyers need to focus on shoring up is finding a legit number one scorer. They have good depth. They have very good depth at the forward position. They don't have that one guy who can just go out there and basically put the puck in the net at the snap of a finger. So I think that if they could acquire someone who's just a bona fide goal scorer, that would do wonders to help this team going forward. Even if they can't, the guys that they have, they've got a lot of good young talent up there, and I think that they have big things in store. And I would love to see another year of Konechny getting better. Hopefully next year in the playoffs he doesn't disappear. Lindblom, hopefully he's able to improve upon what he did this past season. And yeah, it's a lot to be excited for. I think this season gave a lot of Flyers fans excitement that they haven't had in a long time, and a lot of us are feeling like they're maybe only one or two pieces away from being a very legitimate Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, and some of those pieces might be already like at least on the team or just in the pipeline. Like Farabee, he showed a lot of potential. Frost in his few games, he showed that offensive potential that we've kind of been looking for, kind of Danny Briere-esque with his first goal, wearing the same number.
That was filthy.
Konechny, he seems like our most likely guy, like you said, that can put a puck in the net, the snap of a finger or whatever. But I think he will continue to progress. Hypothetically, if your first line is Konechny, Couturier, and Lindblom, that's just going to be a dominant line that you just work your way down and fill in Farabee and Frost wherever they need to be to make up for whatever might be lacking in offense. And it just looks like an overall great depth team with a lot of scoring potential. It's just a matter of, like you said, having that one guy that will legitimately go out there and score that fucking goal.
Yeah, it's something the Flyers clearly missed in the playoffs. They had some guys who came up with goals in big moments. Kevin Hayes had a few of them. Some of their defensemen came through with goals in big moments, but they didn't have, especially in that Islanders series, well, they didn't score at all, first off. They didn't score at all in the Montreal series, and they basically let Carter Hart carry them to a series win there. But in the Islanders series, it really showed through that they didn't have that bona fide goal scorer that could go out and just be a total game breaker. So you hope that going forward next season that they're able to find a guy who can kind of carve out that niche there. But you mentioned Sean Couturier, and I got to make a segue here. Couturier winning the Selke Trophy, the first Flyer to do that since Dave Pullen in the 1986-87 season. Steve, what do you have to say about Couturier and, what he was able to provide for the Flyers this season and in his way to winning that award?
Well, first off, Sean Couturier's deserved this for, quite a few years now. He's just been that excellent his whole career, especially defensively. Then
That's
when
right.
he finally
And you predicted it as well.
Yeah, 7 years ago on Facebook, I posted Sean Couturier future Selke winner. And it took me 60 seconds to find that post. All I had to do was type my name and Selke in the search bar on Facebook.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so he's basically deserved at least nominations his whole career. I mean, given he was playing with fucking Zach Ronaldo and Max Talbot or whoever.
Hey, don't hate on Talbot.
He was done by then. I mean, he did score 19 goals with us, so yeah, that was the peak of his career outside of winning cups with Pittsburgh. But he's deserved this when he finally got like legitimate hockey player line mates that were not named Zach Ronaldo. He started to produce. And this year in particular, it was basically, hey, this winger or this center who could play wing is struggling, put him with Sean Couturier, and then they find their groove. So it was just, he was like the backbone of like the whole forwards. I know we like to think Kevin Hayes with how well he played all year, but Kevin Hayes, he was very solid, exceeded my expectations, but Sean Couturier just continued to be Sean Couturier that we've grown to know the past year and a half, 2 years, of just making every player around him better. And again, it's no more evident than players struggling, put him with Sean Couturier, they fucking figure it out. So that's why I think he truly deserved it this year, because like the stats kind of showed it, where it's like, hey, this player's struggling, starts playing with Couturier, stats going up. So I think he could, I'm not going to say he's going to be Bergeron, but I think he could continue to at least continuously be nominated as long as he keeps it up and the depth around him continues to play as well. But he'll always have that defensive awareness and able to produce offensively. However, I do think that this was probably his most deserving year, but with social media, these trophies now in the NHL, they're becoming more of like, hey, he hasn't won it yet, but he's always kind of deserved it. He'll get it this year. And I think that might ruin his chances in the future to get another one. I hope it isn't true, but who knows? We'll see. I think he at least deserves one more.
If they man crush him like Berge, then he'll definitely win a couple. If the voters get a man crush on Cooch, granted he is a flyer, and we know the NHL with our team.
Yeah.
So, but all I have to say for that is, Cooch, there it is.
There you go. Yeah, he really did deserve it this year. And Steve, I agree. He has deserved it for a long period of time, and unfortunately had to deal with battling Patrice Bergeron for that award, coming up short a few times. Bergeron.
He's probably going to be named after him soon.
Yeah, he's tied with Bob Gainey for the most ever Selke trophies. And yeah, but he's done in, probably a more competitive era of hockey. So Bergeron, for a while, was the prime example of what a Selke trophy winner should be. And Coots was never far behind him, and finally Coots was able to get to that level of the season where he was the winner of that trophy, and much deserved. Congrats to Sean Couturier on winning that Selke trophy, and hopefully it's just the beginning of the trophy case filling up for both him and for the Flyers.
One more thing, though, Rob. Both of those guys are some of the toughest dudes in the game, too. Because Berkey plays through everything, and Cooch played through almost a torn meniscus the last playoffs. Then he played through a messed up meniscus again, and the other time plays through messed up wrist. Same with Bergeron, the dude had a collapsed lung and go to the hospital. I don't know what it is with those two. Yeah, those two.
Was that after an overtime game with this collapsed lung?
Yeah, that was literally after an overtime game. He was going to start talking to the media, and then he's like, never mind, I can't talk. And then he had to go to the hospital. I'm like, oh, shit. But yeah, those dudes, some of the toughest in the game as well. So
I could be wrong, but with Bergeron, was that not the game 7 against Toronto where he scored the tying goal in the final minute and then scored the winner in overtime, or was it the series after that?
I'm trying to remember because I'm having a blank, but
I know for certain it was that lockout year playoffs.
Yeah, it was that playoffs. I just can't remember if it was that game and then he just had to go to the hospital after being Mr. Clutch like usual, or if it was the next series. I can't remember that.
Yeah,
it was 2013 and it was in the Stanley Cup Finals against Chicago.
Okay. It was against.
Well, at least that's when the injury was revealed, I believe. He may have been injured before that. Anyway,
it was Game 6. He had broken bones, a separated joint, torn muscles, and a punctured organ.
So it wasn't overtime. It was the Blackhawks winning with back-to-back goals in the final minute.
Yeah, it was when they got eliminated and when they lost. So yeah, that's some toughness. But
yeah. Anyway, yeah. And then on the other hand, you have Couturier, who had a 5-point game, including a hat trick with the torn ACL against the Penguins. Also in a game that the Flyers lost in Game 6.
Yeah, but also speaking of, our Sean Couturier hype train here, when they were trying to say that Kiri Vonta for Dallas was the first NHL player to score a hat trick as his first goals in the playoffs. Couturier did that.
Yeah,
Against Pittsburgh.
game 2 against Pittsburgh. Both him and Giroux had hat tricks in that game.
I didn't even realize they said that.
Yeah, they did. I saw it on Twitter, and it was like, what the shit? That's not true.
The guy just won the Selke Trophy. He won the Selke Trophy. He's being disrespectful like that.
You should have responded with one of those gifs where the person's yelling, "That's not true!"
I wanted to. But I love doing it. I do it all the time.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we close out here, I want to bring back a segment that was a mainstay in the Disciples of Ed before the coronavirus shutdown hit, and I think we got to get back to it because I think a lot of listeners liked it. It is the Rage Room. Usually it's the Rage Room moment of the week, but since we haven't done it in a while, you can just anything recently. Borek, I don't think you've done this before, but anything recently, can be sports related or not, that has pissed you off, that would make you. This is named after the Rage Room that has been installed at the Wells Fargo Center. Anything that would make you want to go to that Rage Room and just break stuff. Borek, what's your Rage Room moment?
I'll give you the one that's not going to make me go on a soapbox. There's, I would say the sports related one is I did really enjoy some of those Outsiders shows after the post game. I do not enjoy Bird's Outsiders anymore because I cannot stand Joe Giglio, however you say his last name. So now that he's hosting, that show is definitely axed for me watching it.
Joe Santaligiglio.
Yeah, so not watching that anymore. The other that would definitely make me go to the Rage Room is all the tension that's going on in the nation right now. I hope that gets solved and everyone can kind of, I know you like country music, Rob, as Carrie Underwood says, I believe love wins. Hope that happens eventually.
Yeah. I think that everybody's on board with this. Some people might have different ideas as to how to attain that, but yeah, I think the general statement there, everybody is on board that we just want a society where everybody can get along with each other and just, not have hatred towards anyone.
Another good country song. I think that's Keith Urban. Can't we all get along?
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, your Rage Room moment?
Everything. Everything that's going on, it's fucking sucks, and who knows when it gets better. But I don't know. I mean, work always pisses me off, but I prefer not to talk about it. Because I have two things about work, but I don't want to talk about it. How about this? Fucking rental pricing is too fucking damn high. I'm trying to look for a place, and I just can't find a place within my area that's actually feasibly done. I found one place, but I'm not sure, because when you actually crunch the numbers, it makes sense, but not really. Then you'll just be kind of struggling again, and it's I just want to move out on my own, but I can't, because I can't fucking afford everything that I'll need. So that's it. Fucking housing and rental prices outside of living with a friend.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there with the housing prices. I've been looking for a house for a little while now, and I found a few that are kind of maybe close to my price range, but I keep waiting for those prices to drop, and it's not happening, which is kind of frustrating.
Thing is, it's not going to drop, and then I have my bullshit at work where it's okay, I'm not going to have this anymore, so I can't really expect that. So I could maintain something every 4 months to be able to make up for whatever I had to pay for before. It's just fucking frustrating.
Yeah, it really is. My Rage Room moment, and this is something that I've brought up as my Rage Room moment numerous times in the past, but it's become especially relevant over the past few weeks. For some reason, everybody is driving slow as shit lately.
Yes.
I don't know. There's normally a lot of slow drivers out there.
Common fucking Rage Room.
It is, but it's more true lately because it seems like everybody is driving slower over the past few weeks. During the course of the week, going into work, maybe once or twice I'll get stuck behind a slow driver. The last 2 or 3 weeks, it's been every single day, and it's not just on the roads are 2 lanes, one lane each way. It's, being on the highway and being in the left lane and somebody's going the speed limit, or, somebody's going below the speed limit. Like, good Lord, just hit the fucking gas. You're not gonna get pulled over. You're not gonna get in an accident if you're going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Listen, I've heard your rage rooms because they're primarily this, but also I've been in the car with Shane.
I'm the model of consistency.
But I finally have my permit, so I'm like driving around like the neighborhood, just trying to get a feel for this shit finally. And I'm like seeing another car. I'm like, okay, just pass me, please. I don't want to fucking piss you off. I'm learning.
Yeah, but you have an excuse. You're learning how to drive. I don't think everybody that robs behind that. Yeah, hopefully everybody that robs behind does not learn how to drive, because that's way too many people learn how to drive at once.
Oh my god. Like, most of these people, they're probably about 45, 50 years old. I'm thinking, come on, you've been driving for 30 years. You have enough driving experience under your belt to know that you can go faster than you're going right now. Like, good Lord. I don't know. It drives me nuts every single time. Maybe I'm just a really impatient, it's not maybe. It's a fact. I am a very impatient driver when I'm behind the wheel, but come on, people.
I agree with you on that, though, because even extending past just driving slow, I don't know. I feel like people have just got worse at driving.
In general, yes.
Like, just in general, like, I've got cut off so much more than I used to. There will be a light that literally the person beeps at you before it even turns green because they see the other light turn red. And you're like, dude, the light's not even green. And then you go as soon as it turns green and the person beeps at you when they see the other light turn red. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this asshole? So, there's definitely been a lot more. I don't know if it's because of the pandemic, everyone has more tension, but, like, there's been a lot more, it seems like, stress driving by people where you're just like, oh, I got cut off for the 5th time driving the day.
Yeah, it's rough waters out there on the roads, that's for certain. Anyway, you guys have any final thoughts that you want to throw in before we wrap up this episode here?
I want to score a hat trick and say I was right about the Flyers losing in 7, unfortunately, to the Islanders. I was right about Sean Couturier winning as Selke that I predicted 7 years ago. And I was right about Peter Laviolette being hired as the Washington Capitals head coach.
Yeah, I really wish that you had settled for just 2.
Me too. But hey, this is a Flyers hockey podcast. I had to somehow make a hat trick. And I think Laviolette, he got the perfect term for him as a coach, which is just 3 years, because, he's basically got 3 years for a team to be super elite with him and have a cup chance. So Washington was smart in that regard, but we're on the up and up, and hopefully we'll just keep derailing Washington.
Yeah, would really be nice there. Borek, you got anything final you want to throw in here?
Yeah, mine's just, as we've been talking, stay hyped, stay excited for this team. We did exceed expectations this year. We had a disappointing ending, but I believe everyone's going to come back, as AV said, with a bunch of fire in their belly. And I do think, since he called them out a little bit, you're going to see a lot of the veterans come back in the best shape they've been in a while and have the, as he kind of hinted at, revamped workouts for the age they're at now, rather than doing the same thing they've been doing their entire career. Because, I mean, it is pretty common sense. You can't work out the same as a 32-year-old as you did as a 22-year-old. But so I think we're going to see the team veterans play best next year, too, that are not Jake Voracek, since Jake Voracek was more consistent than G at times this year. But I do think we'll see, and that's me saying that, who has a man crush on Giroux. I do think we'll see more consistency out of G and others next year. But the other thing is just stay positive, everybody. We have a quick turnaround this year with the hockey season. The draft will be before you know it, and then you'll be like, oh, crap, the season's starting in 5 weeks. So enjoy that and enjoy the Stanley Cup, because it's going to be a good one when, I believe, Tampa beats the Islanders.
Yeah, Tampa and Dallas, a really intriguing matchup there. Anyway, I just want to give a shout out to, first off, the band that's responsible for our intro-outro music. That is the Jackdolls. You can find them online at www.thejackdolls.com. They also have a Patreon account at patreon.com/thejackdolls. Really good Celtic rock music. I'm personally really into that genre. I love listening to them. Definitely check them out. Once again, www.thejackdolls.com or patreon.com/thejackdolls. I also want to give a shout out to Justfood. You can reach them at 215-794-3663. That's 215-794-FOOD. They've got a location in Buckingham, Pennsylvania, off of York Road in Buckingham Green. Their owner, Asian Rob, a great friend of the Always Next to Your podcast network. They have an incredible selection of food. Anything you want, they pretty much have it. Definitely check them out. That's 215-794-3663. Once again, 215-794-FOOD. Located in Buckingham, Pennsylvania, in Buckingham Green off of York Road. We thank you for listening to this episode of the Disciples of Ed, and we'll be back with another one shortly.
I used to be revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.